I have a series of questions I like to ask my poet guests. And let me first start with, some people start writing when they're kids, some in school, some after school, some recent. When did you start writing for fun?
For fun. Wow. When I was pretty small, uh, my parents were very sort of literary folks and also artistic folks. So I had um, I had all that there and just couldn't wait to express myself. So they provided me with lots of crayons and also they were very verbal, come from a storytelling family. So all that stuff. Pretty young.
Okay. Um, you remember any of those early authors that impressed you as a kid, authors that said to you, wow, this is neat. I need to do this.
Well, yes, actually, quite young. My father gifted me Blake's Songs of Innocence and Songs of Experience illustrated, tiny
Wow.
little books, which were just perfect for a child. And I still have them. And Blake always has been an inspiration, and especially all the people floating in the
That-
and so that was yeah. And then he had the Little Prince by Saint-Exupéry. I'm not very good at pronouncing French, and I was terrified of the one illustration of this a snake that swallowed a hat or something like that. I do recall.
Okay. Yeah, I had my favorite books when I was very young too. Um, when did you start thinking of yourself as an author, as a person that would be a writer?
That's an interesting question. Um, because my father he was a poet and a journalist, and so a big influence. And I was an avid reader always, and just devoured books. I would get them out from the library and read like at least four a week, and big ones, the classics, all of them. Um, but it hadn't occurred to me to do that myself. And then um, oddly, I just found this book. I fell in love when I was about 17 and was inspired to make a book. Um, and I illustrated it, and it was sort of love poems. And it's really sweet. I mean, it's a 17-year-old girl's sort of doing. But yeah, and yeah, that was an inspiration, and it's really fun to have just found it.
Yeah, yeah, I have journals that go back to my teenage years too. I know how it is. Um, there's writing both poetry and prose, and then there's sharing poetry and prose. Do you remember some of your early experiences sharing either in a public space or a scholastic space some of your writing?
Um, Let me think about that. That's a really good question. Well, yeah, I had always had a really good relationship with my English teachers and sort of was the pet because I was so eager. And of course, always I got up in front of the class and was really honored that when I was a senior in high school, my English teacher had to go somewhere, and he sort of put me in charge of the lessons. And which was I'm just wow, I'm just remembering a lot of that. And of course there was an adult there, like a substitute teacher. But I was really proud of that. And so I guess I got accustomed to all of that early on. And then later on, I was an art critic and often um, was on the news, and then, television for various reasons, for various events that I covered at museums and blah, blah, blah. I have to say that that caused a lot of jitters, but I got through it.
Did you write school newspapers, yearbooks, stuff like that when you were in school?
No, I never did touch the yearbook, the yearbook, but then uh later on I was pretty much kept to myself in high school and had a lot of older friends. I was sort of like a hippie chick. And so at that in that era, I didn't really relate terribly to many of the students of my age, but I did know a lot of older people, not too much older than me, that I hung out with. So I was just not very participatory because it was sort of back in the day of um, football and cheerleaders, and I didn't really relate to that too much. But then later on, uh, at university, I went to Ohio State forever and a day and also taught there. I was uh, very involved in the Lantern, the school newspaper that had 100,000 circulation, which was quite huge for a student newspaper. I
Yeah.
was the art critic twice, and then also the editorial editor. And I really enjoyed the camaraderie of putting a newspaper together. And then I regretted it not doing that when I was in high school. I really did, because then I realized, like, wow, why didn't I do that? So,
Now, you said Ohio State, right?
yes,
Um,
Buckeyes.
were there echoes of the Kent State experience there in Ohio?
Oh, not really. But I do remember May 4th, 1970. I always remember that event. Um, and my father he was worked for the same newspaper, Mansfield News Journal, for many, 40 years. And he was thinking about switching careers at that time and interviewed as the PR person for Kent State. And he was so happy. That was right before. And he was so happy that he stayed where he was, because what a nightmare that would have been. But uh, no, different vibe at Ohio State. Very, very arts, pretty a big arts town, which I like very much. And there could be a lot of political stuff going on, absolutely. But yeah, thanks for the reminder of Kent State. What a sad, sad moment for all of us.
Yeah. Uh, the old Chinese curse of interesting times, right? Uh,
Yes.
when were there poets in your young life that had made an impression on you besides Blake, obviously?
Oh boy. Well, Dad had a pretty wonderful library. And I always loved Yeats so much, um, lyric poet, and yeah, just the regulars, all the greats. And but I do recall being very, very fond of Blake. Yeah, or not, excuse me, Yeats. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Question. There are many schools of thought on this topic, and there's a full range from only write when inspiration moves you to the other end of the scale of write every day, polish your craft, whether you're inspired or not. When you're inspired, then you'll be ready. Where do you fall on that spectrum from write every day to write only when inspiration hits?
Great question. I'm not in charge. And I actually write a lot of poems about it. And I'm so glad for the poetry community, because I realize I am not alone. M- My business, which I never quite developed because I'm too busy, is called uh, Arte de la Musa, art of the muse, because I have to thank the muse, because the muse visits, or whatever you want to call it, angels, devils, and um, it can be a little bit scary at times, because it often happens when I'm walking. And my partner, Martine, is very keen to keep his eye on me, because when the poems come fully formed, I'm just the chronicler, I'm the scribe. I always have my paper and my pen, and he's reported to me that I will stop dead in the middle in London, stop dead in the middle of the street to start writing, and he has to swoop in and like move me out of the way, which is yikes. But and I pretty much just write. I can't write fast enough, and sometimes I wake in semi-dark, and from being a reporter and covering concerts and stuff, I learned to write in the dark using my little finger as a guide, so I wouldn't write over what I'd already written. But sometimes it's so hard to like discern what I'd written. Um, and then I often will just dictate it into Microsoft Word, or just dictate it to try to make, if it doesn't make any sense. Sometimes it makes perfectly good sense, and it's my handwriting is really clear. But I'm not alone. I've talked to others, and it's just I'm one of those.
Okay, thank you. Next question. Are there themes or topics that you find yourself returning to again and again?
Absolutely. One is, there are many. Yes, clouds, water, it just nature, just nature. The sea, rivers, clouds, soil, root systems. Yeah, a lot of that just keeps recurring and recurring. Dreams, also contrasts, light and dark, that sort of thing. Also, and I've been told this by many people, that my poems are journeys. Um, so the journey, I'm a traveler, and sort of insanely so, but a lot of us are. And so it's always about the journey. And pretty much, the inner life, the inner inspiration, and um, just you know existence. And so those are the things that return and return and return, and also a sense of wonder, I suppose. Um, I lived in a very tiny village in New Mexico, close to Santa Fe, called Chimayo, and there was an old fellow named Epifanio, which is a very old Spanish name, Epifanio. And he had a cane, and I would see him on daily walks. And he stopped me once, and he said, "Oh, okay, this is what I have to tell you." He said, "Never forget to look up." And I remember him, and I remember that like every day, and just that sense of wonder to look up.
Very nice. Are you a dream journal keeper?
No, I guess no. Not really. Well, not really, because the poems are sort of act as that. Actually, the dream state, whether asleep or awake, just musing, I guess. So yeah, yeah. But
I was curious. A lot of the esoteric schools talk about keeping a dream journal to study
yeah,
what your metaphors are. I was just curious. You spoke of writing from dreams a lot. Another
yeah,
question. Do you think poets have a responsibility to address societal themes?
absolutely. I do. I think that poets are the heart and soul, the conscience of humanity, and the keepers of magic secrets, and just all the every aspect of being human. I think that that's the calling, the job, and I really revel in how being part of the poetry community, um, the various poets, how they address certain aspects, and very wonderfully. I appreciate it. I think we every poet dips into every aspect of, human life. Um, and some poets gravitate more towards, the political, and I always appreciate the variety and the breadth and depth and all that. So,
Oh, you anticipate my next question. I typically like to ask at this point, since we're in this interesting new space of international poetry Zoom space, has anything surprised you about joining this new village, if you will? What lessons do you draw from it?
oh, just to thank you. What a wonderful question. Just to be in awe of and embrace more so, than I do difference, um, especially, being introduced to, a lot of poets from, Africa and India, and, from all the different countries, just representing their realities and, experiences and their voices. It's wonderful to be a citizen of the world.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Okay, next, um, if a young person approached you and said, I write a little poetry and I hear there's these groups and stuff, and I just wonder, is it worth me committing myself, my art, to this universe of writing? Is poetry worthwhile?
Oh, absolutely. Well, for example, I often say art saves lives.
Absolutely.
And I mean it because I taught visual art. I taught studio arts at Ohio State University for many years. I also was gifted with a poetry class, at Santa Fe High School. I taught English. And wow, those teenagers really needed that outlet. I'm telling you. And yeah, cute story. My Mexican partner, um, I got up at there was an open mic in the village we lived and live in Mexico, Bar Don Pato, and every Tuesday, and musicians put it together, and I would write a lot of poems, every Tuesday to read up at the mic, and he watched me do this, and he goes, "You can do that? How do you do that?" And I go, "Well, my friend, all you do is just everything about your life. You just dig into it and just explore your emotions. And it's your poetry. You can do whatever you want with it. It's yours. You have that freedom. Just let it out on the page." And I just encouraged him. And then the next week he got up at the mic, and he had such a fan base because he really took that seriously and just poured it all out. And he's a great poet. And yeah, and he learned also to use poetry to process really everything in his life that had happened, and all his thoughts and feelings. And wow. And it again, like, when I taught the high school poetry, there was this one very quiet student. I didn't know he had it in him, and he took off like a bolt of lightning, or whatever, like a freight train. He just yeah. So it's just wonderful that, that creativity, I think, is in all of us. And I think sometimes that you just need to meet somebody who'll say yes to you, and that you can do it, right?
Very
I
good
had a
answer.
lot of people encouraging me, like, you can do it. And it's like, why not? ¿Por qué no? Right?
Very good. Thank you. Lovely. Well spoken. Next
Thanks.
question. What makes a good poet? I
Mm.
only ask tough questions of poets, you see.
Oh, they're wonderful. Ooh. Oh, what makes a good poet? honesty, being able to get down, as the saying goes, with the what is, and and go as deep as possible and wide as possible with just looking, really looking at what you see, not just seeing, but really going down deep. And a lot of poets are just amazing. And what they find when they're down there, or out there, and then they bring that back and construct their work, and then wow us with their vision, what they've seen, and what they've felt, and what they know. Sometimes you don't know that you know.
Sure,
And
absolutely.
and then yeah, and then I think that poetry causes you to examine all that and challenge yourself, like about what maybe you think you know and you don't, and then, like, yeah, that sort of thing.
Okay, thank you. Next, is narrative important in poetry, or is it irrelevant?
Huh, that's interesting because I've just had to ponder. Thank you for that. Um, well, and here I said that early on I was very inspired by Yeats, which is very lyrical and uh, almost dancerly. Yeah, and then I've been deemed by a few people as a prose poet, narrative poet, and I do come from a storytelling tradition. Um, but yeah, essentially with poetry, you're telling a story, and I do love a lot of the poets who are just really. It's almost like they're skipping stones across a body of water. They just touch on the top, the wave, just glance it, but the words that come are complete. You can get it. You understand what they're saying. And then other poets are they actually they construct something that's much more like a story and a narrative. And for me, I think I sort of scramble it up. I mean, I'll do the short, sort of evocative lyric lyrical poem, and then I do, just get down narrative poems. So, oh, that's interesting. You ask good questions.
Thank you. Next question. We're getting down toward the end. Uh, what type of reading do you turn to for entertainment?
Wow. Um, hmm,
What do you read for fun?
what do I read for fun? Oh God, this is going to sound horrible. I like theory, philosophy, that sort of thing. So, uh, all the big questions. Uh, Also, there's some really wonderful, like, um, Gabriel Garcia Marquez, 100 Years of Solitude, and I was very inspired by a lot of the Spanish speaking writers. Uh, yeah, and poetry. I read poetry for fun, for heaven's sakes. Yes.
I was working on a project out in Kansas in an engineering lab for national cash registers, a mainframe computer analytic tool. And so I would spend from 8 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock at night in a magnifying glass making little tiny connections inside circuit boards. And the guy worked next to me, who did not have quite the project that I had, turned to me and he said, how do you unwind at the end of the day? And I said, well, my passion at that time was reading quantum physics. I said, so I read physics. And he goes, you read physics to relax? And I go, oh yeah, it's so engaging, and it's like cosmology to me. It's, trying to formulate in your mind these metaphors for either vast areas of space and time or the tiniest intrinsic inside a neutron type of reality. Stretching my bounds of reality is something I find very engaging. Next question. Um, what's on your desk right now? You got muted. You're accidentally muted.
Yes, what's on my desk? A takeaway cup from a pub because I was drinking coffee there. A glass of water, a cool lamp. Also, oddly, two dried up beetles from Mexico that I just, having just unpacked some of my bags, I found in my suitcase because it was rainy season when I left, and it's like bug of the week, and all these little beetles come out, and they're in a place of honor.
If I could ask you a silly, silly thing, sometime today or tomorrow, send me a picture of those two little beetles. I would love to include that in the video.
Okay, yeah, let me see this still. Yeah, they are.
Okay. Next question, next to the last question. What's your next goal as a writer, philosopher, counselor, poet?
Wow. Next goal. All right. Well, I have so many poems that yeah, yeah, I've got a book coming out that sort of covers a lot of poems I wrote and read in Mexico. And but that's work. I think my next goal is to stare out to sea.
Great goal. Do you want to mention your new book, by the way?
Oh, yes, of course. Of course, of course.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
It's called A House Without Walls, Existential Journeys and Love Poems to Mexico. And yep, I just wanted to pay homage to that period of my life when over 20 years ago, I traveled down from Santa Fe, New Mexico to Old Mexico and spent 6 months traveling, doing a road trip, going hither, thither, and yon, and covered a lot of Mexico and didn't find a place that suited. Went back to Santa Fe, New Mexico, and I was writing again for the arts and covered a woman artist and who lived in Sayulita, Nayarit, Mexico. And she said, oh, you didn't find a place to live because you didn't go to Sayulita. Go to Sayulita and that will be your home. And I took her up on it, went to Sayulita the next trip, and voila, I drove into the plaza with my daughter and we stopped in the plaza and we looked around, we went, this is it. And so a lot of experiences there, you can imagine, uh, just on every level, just so many experiences. And Mexico's a magical place.
Let me
And
ask you a question about the book
yeah.
title. Now, some writers prefer that their work be self-explanatory. Others would
Mhm.
love to tell you the backstory of how that name came. So, if you'd like to tell us about the name and why and wherefore, House Without Walls, or if you'd rather let us imagine, what's your choice?
Yeah. Well, I'll say it was a poem I wrote about a friend uh, that was struggling at the time, and but the cover that I chose for the book is a huichol yarn painting, and the huicholes, it's not what they call themselves, but the huicholes are uh, an indigenous people who are very spiritual and artistic, and they use peyote as a spiritual practice. And so, and I'm friends with many in Sayulita, because that's sort of part of where they're from. And so it's a yarn painting of a temple called a Karewe, and it's a house without walls. And I think that, it can be whatever anybody wants it to be, but it's sort of what life, I don't know, a house without walls, right? It's about journeying. So
Wonderful. I'm so happy for you. Uh, that whole process of birthing a book is every bit as
mm,
exciting as writing the lines in it. I have had that pleasure myself many times, so I wish you every success with it. And
thank you.
I look forward to having a copy on my shelf, and I know so many of our friends do as well. Last question: have you ever had a poetic crisis?
Poetic crisis. Huh. Yeah, I guess I have. I mean, back in the day, well, us during COVID, um, right? Um, we that's when all the poets sort of whatever, the whole poetry, international poetry scene sort of got birth. The other thing that happened during that period of time is the Black Lives Matter, and which of course is wonderful. Um, but I had sort of a crisis that came about um, because I wrote a particular poem, and it was oh no, it was about something else. It was about something else. And I was sort of accused of being a racist, and yeah,
Someone
that
who
was
didn't know you at all.
yeah, that was really weird because yeah, I grew up in Ohio and pretty much was citizen of the world because everyone in my graduating class was from somewhere else, and like difference was just, yeah, we were all from somewhere else, and a lot of the parents spoke different languages, and it was not an issue. So, and I do understand that the southern states in the United States are different, totally different thing. But that was really difficult, and it sort of put me on the defensive. And then I was counseled by my son, who eased me on that. So, yeah, that was a real crisis. And I do remember at the time, and I was really glad for the all that was going on and that dialogue. And I think it was really, really healthy. But thanks for asking that question too.
Well, now the fun begins because I turn to you and say, my dear Lesley, read some of your poetry. Don't shy away from the longer ones that you don't normally get a chance to read. You have
Right.
20 minutes, 30 minutes, my dear. The stage is yours.
Okay.
Or as
Wow.
long as you'd like, okay? As long as you're comfortable.
Okay, great. Well, I'll start with the first poem in the book, which you so ably read, because it's a good start of the book. And it's called, Without Further Ado, The Border Song. It's a small, short one. We stand at the border, hands touching, the steady whisper of the gods in our ears. Our fingers flutter, tentative, not sure. They touch. The hands open and grasp each other. The fingers entwine. This is how it should be. This is how it is. Your hands are brown, mine white. I am yours. I will cross over. Trading places, we are each other. We are the same. You will go north, I south, and we will not look back. We will travel to each other's place, to the place of our hearts, the heart's home, not an accident of birth, but the home we choose, our choice. Exchanging vows, we become each other, you white, I brown. I will travel south, you north, with the steady whisper of the gods in our ears. And so,
Lovely. Absolutely lovely.
thank you. So,
Play on, my dear, play on.
I shall. So let me see what um I think I'll read this one. It's called I Will Not Take a Camera. I like my eyes. Excuse me, I'll start with one. Okay. I like my eyes. I like how my eyes work upon entering rooms, rooms that are vast or small, rooms that are indifferent. The light full throttle, the light piercing my eyes, or the light that is hushed, reverent, and gentle. It doesn't matter. I am given precious time. I ask for precious time. I have the precious time, the slow time of my senses. I give myself this time so my eyes adjust imperceptibly, moment by moment, and my heart beats more slowly, and I become part of the room. Through my eyes, I see everything, everything as it should be in space, swimming with my slow breath, keeping time with my heart, keeping time with the abundant trails or smells or whispers, points of light refracted, circling slowly as my eyes work with great love and persistence, as it should be and as it is. The sounds I hear in my wrist humming with the thick bones at my waist, with its dense flesh, my ankles, reminding me of how I walk or how I love to dance, the quiet gasps and sighs from my eyes coming to me, humming with the bone, the flesh, the small and personal songs sung to me in my dreams, and even now by all the people in all the rooms I walk through every night when my eyes close, are my eyes telling me that I see? I will not take my camera. That quiet, the gasps and sighs in the room, whether mighty or humble, are my eyes telling me that I see. Echoes of other senses at play, influencing the pictures my eyes take in, my eyes create. I will not take my camera. 2. Salgado, Godelka, all saints of the moment, because the camera was there, we accept as truth that cancels out the mystery of the eyes as a sensuous entity. War shots, pictures of you, pictures of Lily, of the baby firstborn, cancel out the memory of the church, the parochia, of San Miguel, the wounded saint the nurses pray to, the smells of hot wax, of the lily in excess, the piss that darkly stains the parochia steps. The pictures cancel out that smell. I don't know. I don't know. They are okay, maybe. Echoes of other senses at play and influencing the pictures, maybe. Not close cropped, perfect composition, a balance of contrast, line, form, volume that zeroes in constantly, zeroes in on perfection and edits out the rest that lies because my eyes don't really see that way. A falsification, only a falsification. The photograph is a standard we've been bullied into accepting as true about how the eyes work. Where do they come from or belong? These images separate from smell, from taste, from bitterness or perfume. Where do I go now? Everywhere, from anywhere, relaxed and paying attention. Where will I go? Anywhere and always, and travel and see only what my eyes see, and that will be enough. I will not take a camera. So yeah, the
Very
next
nice.
one. Oh, cool.
Very nice. You know, I have gone over this kind of a conversation many times. I am an archivist by nature. I'm a documentarian, a scientist. I love to document things. Uh, my children, however, had an aversion to being photographed. So this, are you in the photograph? Are you in the camera? Are you looking at me? Are you experiencing life? Or are you inside the camera? So I really appreciate your, I'm not bringing a camera. Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks. So just give me a second.
Take your time.
Okay. Yeah, I've had to sort of glean these from various places to put it together. So
Sure, sure.
okay. This one is yeah, this is called Hurricane because in Mexico hurricanes happen.
Yes,
So
yes, indeed.
hurricane. Today and again is the end of the world, same as usual. Nothing much, but everything, everything, everything. How many times do we practice this, the drill of nothingness? an impending non-being, only discover that we are still, we survived this time and will go on for longer and still have our times to waste and not take seriously the act of being. I am the actor. This time it is not the hurricane hovering nearby, gaining speed off the coast. No, it isn't that. The birds by turn quiet and vocal, the low roar of the insects, the sounds now at home in my brain, the hush of the palms, still but ready and ready for the thin echo that signals the call to dance. Yes, dance like the waves, the solution to hurricanes. We will just dance, simply that. When in doubt, dance always. I will walk on water if that's what you want. Yes, I say yes. I will dance the dance with the waves, the boiling, agitated sea. I will hover like a god or a fairy, all glistening white with crispy, translucent wings above the sea. And I will call to you no matter where I am. This I promise you. We merge, and the bird sitting on the wire sings his plaintive medieval song. I remember. The backward wave races, racing to take me to that distant and almost forgotten shore. Yet I do remember that other time, each note plucking a chord of memory, the ancestral mind warming me like treacle, the honey, the sweetness, the dearness of the life I once lived and will live again. I am the actor on the stage and the audience, now being, then watching, now watching and being again, a diver, a flyer, a fighter. I move like the swift to pursue and grasp each tiny essence of light that crosses my being, the light of being, the essence of light to take into my mouth. Excuse me, just 1 second. Sorry. Where was I? The essence of light that crosses my being, the light of being, the essence of light to take into my being and nourish me. Yet still, being with wind, in the wind, I hold. Being present, I inhabit this still. Okay. And then a couple short
Very
ones.
nice. Very
Break it
nice.
up. Oh, cool. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, the moment that you have to take out the masking tape and crisscross it against the glass windows, it's when it's really serious that you know that the hurricane's gonna come and do
Uh,
its.
when my family went through Hurricane Andrew down in Homestead, literally the roof was torn off our house while we were in it.
No,
Yes, I don't recommend it to friends.
intense. No, I where where we are in Mexico, it's high ground and but know a lot of people on low ground and the flooding and like the people who live near the river and the river just knocked the front door in and all the water swirled in and my friend who's short like me was underwater and her husband found her by the hair and she picked her up. So, woo, just really intense experiences. But I've never heard about a roof coming off. Yeah, that must have been something.
Yeah,
Uh,
the community we lived in was a rather poor, largely speaking, agricultural community. And there were a lot of trailers there. And when we kind of climbed out after the hurricane was over, the trailer park, there was not one trailer left in the trailer park. They were all gone. But the really sad and telling thing was that the cars were still there. Now, these were not people who had two or three cars. These were one car people. And what
right.
that meant was they were blown away. We heard stories of friends who, when their house blew away, they clung to trees and flapped in the breeze like flags. So yeah, I take hurricane season very seriously, and that's why we've essentially moved away from Florida because we
Yeah.
don't be there anymore. We did 50 years of every
Right.
year from March until November watching out for hurricanes, and it gets tedious after a while.
Yes.
It really
Yes.
does.
Yeah. And those hurricanes in the Gulf, my friend, are known to be savage. because we're on the Pacific, and like, but the ones in the Gulf are, wow, they're really, really just out there intense. So wow, blessings.
So you want
Amazing.
you want to do a final couple, or what do you think?
Oh, sure, sure. Let's see. I'll do this one that's sort of funny. Well, let's see. What can you give me just a second to see what I
Take
want to.
your time, my dear. Take your time. That's what editing's for.
Okay, good. So, all right. So I'll do a couple, if you don't mind, could I do like a couple shorter ones and then a couple longer ones so you have a
Sure,
variety?
sure. Go
Cool.
ahead.
Okay. So this one's called Sprout in the Dark. Sprout in the darkness, your hidden emergence giving you time to grow, undetected by those who might have you not grow. It is unknown the motivations that will thwart those of us hidden underground who wait and wait the long, luxurious waiting to be fully formed and known to need their time for the this and the that of the long awakening. And when emergent, you wake untouched by those who would touch, alter you, the that which pure form is you. Your intactness shines light into us, and luminous now, our world, us to light our way back home, remaining sacred each to her or himself, foot soldiers are. To be as one, all, excuse me, to be as one, each as beacon in their place on each rise of hill, to mountaintop, to tower, to signal, to us the what, the that which is already known, oft forgotten, and to shine as the light of strength, reason, love, purity of form, and be that who will be those to lead us further. The next one's just sort of a fun one that I came up with. Punch drunk. The cherries, oversized on the turquoise background, are simply a cover. The table would be better otherwise bare and not so cloying. If I had a whiskey, just a shot, I would be better also, not so cloying. The demands on you to be nice when you already are make you ill-mannered, like looking at fake cherries. Whiskey, one of the many cures. It makes you perfectly direct, no frills, and ready to fight. In your mind, your dukes are bigger than they are. Since you punch with your mind first, then punch with the fists, no matter what the size, are fully capable. I like to punch with my mind. If the punch goes a long way, my mind works backwards and I am young again, forever young, punching, punch drunk, punching, not going down. I like the not going down part.
Very nice. Very
Okay.
nice.
So I'll just read just a couple more. Let me just see the other offering. I tend to overdo in terms of prep. So
Never too much, Leslie.
should I read the title poem? That's a pretty long
Please,
one.
please, please.
Okay.
And the
Oh,
title of your book is what again?
A House Without Walls.
A House Without Walls. We'll be looking for it.
Right. Well, I will read just a short one first and then A House Without Walls. The short one first is Free Fall. If you fall, that's something you will do. Accident, not accident. It's something you will do. You won't be caught. You won't be caught. That moment when you are held briefly in suspense of free fall, letting go, circling down, when yes, when no, you have let go of something, someone. That hold on life has let you go, and you begin the descent, circling down rapidly to the eye, beholding it slowly, perhaps, as it must seem inside. You are gone elsewhere to the place of falling down, and never again to the place of being back up. It's only down and down onward again and always onward. You are the one now, the one who has fallen. Will you decide, if you don't break, to get back up? It's an
Very
evocative
nice.
one.
Very
So
nice.
I'll just finish with A House Without Walls.
Okay.
So, or maybe I'll do, what do you want? Zabriskie Point about the water or A House Without Walls? You
House
decide.
Without Walls, my dear. Please.
Okay.
The title poem of your new book, coming out very soon, I'm sure. So let's hear House Without Walls.
The river courses past us freely like the tears running down your face. I'm not your angel, as you sometimes say. I've only come to see how you are. How are you? At first we talk small as always and try to keep it small, but it enlarges our talk as it does of its own accord or the saint's choosing. The rains have stopped now and the wall is dry in parts, I say, blotched and ravaged, ragged like your face. Abject with the sorrows, I cannot help but to add the sorrows of an origin you do not know. You cannot know, I say. The tears remain inside, yet wick through like a damp wall, and I see it coming again. We have been through this before. You who say you are a stranger to your fear and your sadness cry, I don't understand. At least that is what I say, but I think I do only sometimes. Dry now like the wall, your face retains the afterburn of stain, the image of a saint frozen and transfixed by suffering. I told you this more than once, I say. I will stand by you, but I cannot help you again this time. If you ask me, I will be your witness, but I will do no more than stand. If you ask me, if you ask me, I will stand. So it is this again. It has come to this. I pace the dimension of your small monk's cell. Why do you cry? Why is it that you cry? You are not religious, you tell me now. How many times you protest too much? I will tell you, I believe you. I always do, yet I know you in a way different than you know yourself. You embrace them not. You disavow these saints, all the angels in me, but there they are above you on the wall, now stained with too many tears, these saints, frozen and fixed in everlasting sainthood, they return the favor of your disregard. They return the favor. I will stand by you, I say, but instead, sit at your bed as you fall into the sheets again, spent and heavy with too many tears. You cannot have it both ways, I told you. I tell you, I will keep on saying to you, you cannot, but maybe it is I who do not understand why it is you cry so. Maybe it is I who do not understand you, adrift, without saints, without religion, yet I know you pray, as do we all, for succor. Socorro, you are saintless, you say, but when the lights are dim, I see them all, your angels dancing around your head. And I, my friend, my hair is not long enough, certainly, not long enough to dry your feet at the door after washing them. Mary, I am not, neither Mary. How difficult it is to you to know you excuse me, how difficult it is to know you are there, here in this room, night after night, you, studious and long-faced in your monk's cell, night after night, crying in the dark, wearing your hair shirt and say nothing. How difficult it is to pretend along with you that you do not know God. I accept this, yet know you lie. I still do not know what I believe, but I believe in you, brave, godless you who fools no one. I see the blood which seeps from your wounds out of the corner of my eye when you are not watching. In the name of the Father, you, brave, godless you who stands upright to pray, if you pray at all, who disavows the saints and knows no self-pity, the blood seeps from your wounds. If I look quietly from the corner of my eye for a moment, I see you becoming your father, like the face of a newborn baby, which changes each hour after its birth to be just briefly someone else of its bloodline, a brother now, then becoming its mother and changing again to become its grandfather, its auntie, its sister, a cousin. Changeling, you become goddess. You embrace each one, each incarnation, each animal, each bird, leaf, insect, blade of grass, song, smell, dance, the sky, all you embrace all. The lights go out and you cry again. I can hear you in the dark. The room is empty. The snake once coiled in the kitchen amongst the pots and the pans escapes unharmed under the door. I know you. Gentle you, your fierce talk, but you would not, even in your fear, even in the depth of your heavy sorrows, do anything but offer your hand to any creature. How is it that you can live so unprotected, so fragile yet so safe? And I, your friend, cannot lift your sorrow, cannot lift you. You lift yourself. You stand in front of the shining mirror, shining you, beautiful you in your house without walls. It is the dark Orpheus, the hidden one, the dark one which looks out at you from the other side and calls to you. It is your journey this time, not mine. It is my turn to quietly weep in my corner, washing away my sins alone, and then I will tell you, I do not understand you. The darkness which passes across like a cloud, the sudden sorrows, and your godless deep faith. But I accept you and honor you as I must also accept myself. So that's it.
Beautiful. Just beautiful. My dear, I do want to offer you one little thing.
What's that?
Since I have asked you, and you have been so generous with your time and with your poetry, I want to read one of mine as a little gift to you. Okay? And since you are among many, many other great gifts of you, you are an international traveler, an international lover, an international woman whose heart has been in many lands and lives yet in many lands. I offer you this little poem about traveling love. Okay? It's called If You Were in Oslo. Okay? If you were in Oslo, I would never wait. I wouldn't go slow, but that you so very well know. If you were in Vienna, I would instantly rush to see you. Doubly sure in Singapore, in a blink of an eye, I'd be out the door. And if you were in Madrid, let me tell you, kid, or if you were in Rome, I'd make sure you felt at home. And if you were in Bern, that's all I'd ever have to learn. And if you were in Shanghai, to there I would fly. You wouldn't ask you when or why. If you were in Johannesburg, I'd in an instant tell you all the things I learned. And if you were in Copenhagen, I'd be there before you got wet from the raining. And were you in Amsterdam, I'd never be an also ran. If you were in Rio, I'd be so very glad to see you. If you went to Vladivostok, I'd let you pull my stockings off. And if you were in Minsk, I'd make sure you were really convinced. And if you were ever in Marseille, I'd say all there is to say. And if you rested in Beirut, I'd demand to ply my suit. And if in Dubai, you'd never have to ask me when or why. And if in Istanbul you rested weary, you know in an instant I'd join you, don't you, dearie? And were you in Shannon, I'd be there like a cannon, because no matter where you are, you see, you're never really far, because it's in the heart. That's where it starts.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you. Brilliant.
Thank you, my dear. I just want to thank you so much. It's such an honor and pleasure to have you with us. I know there's so many in the poetry community, the international poetry community, that just find you so inspiring, so spiritual, so gifted. And I just hope once in a while, I know we're all striving to be modest, but I want you once in a while to give yourself a darn good pat in the back, okay? You do good work and you're an inspiration. Thank you, my friend.
Oh,
Lesley Constable, from all points of the globe, a wonderful poet. Thank you.
thank you, Rick.
Bye bye.
Bye.